Friedrich Nietzsche stands at the crossroads of one of the most profound intellectual shifts in Western history. A philosopher who not only foresaw the unraveling of religious faith, but also grappled with its implications. Nietzsche did not merely diagnose the crisis, he sought to carve out an alternative. His work remains both celebrated and controversial, a testament to his enduring influence on philosophy, literature, and psychology. Nietzsche was born in 1844 in Rücken, a small town in what is now eastern Germany. His early life was steeped in the Christian faith, as his father, Karl Ludwig Nietzsche, was a Lutheran pastor. However, tragedy struck early. At just 5 years old, Nietzsche witnessed his father's slow and painful decline due to a brain disease, a cruel irony for a man devoted to God. A year later, his younger brother, Ludwig, also passed away. This double tragedy left an indelible mark on young Nietzsche, planting the seeds of doubt that would later bloom into a radical philosophical outlook. As a child, Nietzsche was remarkably introspective and serious. While other boys played, he buried himself in books, particularly classical literature and philosophy. By the time he entered university, he was already an exceptional thinker. Initially, he studied theology, but the more he read, the more his faith wavered. A pivotal moment came when he encountered the works of Arthur Schopenhauer, whose bleak but compelling view of existence resonated deeply with him. Nietzsche abandoned theology and turned to philology, the study of ancient texts, which would later shape his method of dismantling traditional beliefs. At just 24, Nietzsche became the youngest ever professor at the University of Basel, an achievement that remains unmatched. Yet, academia soon felt stifling to him. He was not one to conform, and the rigid structures of university life did not align with his increasingly radical ideas. He resigned after a decade, citing both dissatisfaction and persistent health issues, chronic migraines, digestive problems, and, as some historians speculate, the lingering effects of an illness possibly contracted in a brothel. From then on, Nietzsche lived a wandering, solitary existence. He traveled across Europe, from the Italian coast to the Swiss Alps, seeking climates that might ease his ailments. But despite his physical suffering, this period was his most intellectually fertile. In a span of just a few years, he produced some of the most groundbreaking works in philosophy. Human, all too human, the gay science, thus spoke Zarathustra, beyond good and evil, and on the genealogy of morals. One of his most infamous declarations comes from the gay science. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. Many misinterpret this as a triumphant rejection of religion, but Nietzsche saw it as a dire warning. With the decline of Christianity, he feared that society would fall into nihilism, a world without objective meaning, where moral values become arbitrary. He predicted that without a strong alternative, humanity would struggle with existential despair. To address this crisis, Nietzsche proposed a radical reimagining of values. He rejected the notion of objective truth, arguing that all knowledge is shaped by human interpretation. There are no facts, only interpretations, he wrote. Rather than seeking meaning from external sources, whether religious or scientific, he urged individuals to create their own values through acts of creativity, ambition, and self-overcoming. This idea culminated in his concept of the Übermensch, or overman, introduced in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The overman is not just a superior being, but a symbol of human potential, someone who rises above societal norms, embraces their personal power, and creates their own meaning. Unlike the traditional Christian ideal, which praises humility and meekness, Nietzsche's overman embodies strength, confidence, and artistic vitality. Interestingly, Nietzsche did not view all suffering as negative. He saw struggle as a necessary catalyst for growth. He admired figures like Beethoven and Goethe, artists who transformed their suffering into creative brilliance. This idea, known as amor fati, love of fate, urges us to embrace all aspects of life, even pain, as essential to our personal evolution. However, Nietzsche's own life was marked by increasing isolation. His relationships with friends and family deteriorated, particularly his bond with composer Richard Wagner, whom he once idolized but later scorned for his nationalistic and religious leanings. He also endured unrequited love, most notably for Lou Andreas Salome, a brilliant intellectual who rejected his advances. This emotional turmoil, combined with his declining health, took a severe toll. In 1889, Nietzsche suffered a complete mental breakdown. The famous story goes that he witnessed a horse being whipped in the streets of Turin, ran to embrace the animal, and collapsed in tears. Whether this was the trigger or merely a symptom of his deteriorating mental state, he was soon diagnosed with insanity. He spent the last decade of his life in silence, under the care of his mother and later his sister, who controversially manipulated his works to align with her nationalist, anti-Semitic views, something Nietzsche himself had fiercely opposed. Despite his tragic end, Nietzsche's ideas continued to shape modern thought. His critiques of morality influenced existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. His concept of the will to power inspired psychologists, including Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. Even today, his writings challenge us to question our deepest beliefs and to take responsibility for crafting our own existence. Ultimately, Nietzsche's philosophy is not about despair. It's about the possibility of transformation. He calls on us to face the void not with fear, but with creativity and strength, and in doing so, to become something greater than we ever thought possible.